Okay. All right. We're on. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a topic near and dear to my heart, which is about how do we build or who is the next regional unicorn. So if you all came here for like a hot stock tip, please pull out your paper because I won't say any of specific names. I'll talk more about the trends. So sorry to disappoint 5 of you who came up today. The other thing I want to mention is there's a reason I didn't want to put up slides here, and that's because I didn't want any one name or any one topic that I say today to kind of be shown on stage and to be memorable. I really want to talk about trends, and I want to talk about a couple of my beliefs, and then hopefully there's a few minutes at the end, and somebody can challenge me, and we can talk about this and turn this into a bit of a debate. Splet in this conference, and a bunch of us who've been active in building the startup ecosystem here on the ground, whether through Digital Serbia Initiative or Serbian entrepreneurs, which I helped start. I think it's very important to have a budding startup ecosystem. But I think what's also really important is think about like sometimes one example. How do we get that one unicorn to happen? And why unicorn is important? Let's just first start there. Unicorns are important because when they succeed and they're sold, they actually put that local ecosystem on the global map. They're like supernova. They explode and they spread around plenty of material, whether it be capital, whether it be knowledge, whether it be networks. So supernovas are very important in the history of the universe because they seed new life. Supernovas or unicorns being created and sold are super important because they seed life in a startup ecosystem. So we need an ecosystem, but we also need really great examples of how to succeed. So I want to focus on my own belief of what I think it takes to create a unicorn here. There's a couple of people here in the audience who came from Croatia. They have a couple of their own. Romania, they obviously have UiPath and a bunch of others. So, how do we do this in Serbia and how do we do this repeatedly in the region? So as I speak today, I'll try to give you answers through, I'll try to present this topic to answering 3 questions. First is, who am I? Why do I care about unicorns in this region? And what do I get out of it? And what do you need to do to become one? So first is, who am I? So I spent about 25 years building startups abroad in Canada, US, 10 different countries. 3 times went from basically being a founding team member to the company going public, whether it be in Canada or US or Australia. I've raised more than $300 million for my own startups. I have advised on several IPOs, whether in US or whether abroad, and I have also most recently built the latest national security stock exchange called the Long-Term Stock Exchange on Wall Street. So I think I have some personal experience from the front row seat, seeing how unicorns are built, seeing how they're sold, and seeing how that startup ecosystem that they helped start, for example, in Toronto, where I started my career, like how that can be really important. Today we had a speaker from Shopify. Shopify is yet, the second most valuable SaaS company in the world, I think, right now, that started locally, and just the impact that has had on the local ecosystem is tremendous. So let's talk about that. So what does it take to become, say, a Serbian Shopify, right? That's how we can think about this topic. So that's who I am. Why do I care about this topic? Well, I am a co-founder of a local VC fund called Fifth Quarter Ventures. Our goal is to find and invest into that next Serbian or local regional unicorn. I believe that strongly into that because after 25 years of building startups abroad, I've decided to take my 3 kids and wife and move them all back here and kind of enjoy the fresh air in winter. And nobody's laughing. Nope. All right. Thank you. I had to force that one. Basically, I believe that much in this that I decided to relocate my family to be here on the ground to help that next unicorn from here. So I believe in it, let's just say. And why that is important, because I started this presentation talking about unicorns being seeders of startup life or startup ecosystem. equally as important in advanced startup ecosystems, you have investors. So I've kind of switched teams. So after 20 plus years of being in startups, now I'm an investor full time. And for that next unicorn, we actually also need certain local investors, this guy, to really back those startups and to help them along the path. So I'll talk about three things that I think whoever is in this audience, and so I'm talking to people who are founders here, first and foremost, what I think that you should be focusing on in order to become the next unicorn. It's going to be really simple. It's probably you've heard all of these things, but I think simplicity is key. And I'm going to be maybe somewhat controversial, but so please challenge me as we have some time, hopefully, for questions as well. First things first is people talk a lot in startups about focusing on the market that is large enough, or they talk about focusing on the market that you understand, that is big enough to really fund your VC-backed business, to grow enough and all that. That is true in Serbia, that is true in the region for sure. But we kind of forget this other thing, which is when you're in a highly developed startup ecosystem like the US or Canada or even Japan, like the economy is really, really vast. And you can pretty much any endeavor that you can think of, you can start a startup in that because you have enough capital, enough knowledge, enough people locally to get going. In Serbia and in the region, in these smaller countries, you actually can't afford to do that. Like you actually have to really, really carefully pick what area, what industry you're actually starting out in. Regardless of how big the global market is, you have to remember that you start from here and you're not in San Francisco or you're not in Toronto or Austin or Tokyo or wherever. So like you have to root yourself in reality. If you don't want to root yourself in the reality, don't be here. Do the thing I did, which is move. So that's the first controversial thing I'll say today. I moved back. I think a lot of people, expats, should be moving back. But if you pick a topic that there isn't an industry here, you pick something that there isn't experts here, your startup is presumed dead by me as an investor, and you're better off actually moving. And if you keep doing that, I'll keep telling you that don't ask me for my time, because that's the favorite thing Serbian people like to ask you is like for your time. I don't need money, I just need your time. So then, but what do you do? So figure out where are the relatively competitive areas that here in your surrounding you have enough to go by, enough to start. So for example, in blockchain, pretty much every major blockchain project over the last several years has a Serbian or Croatian team or a CTO. Like if you want to do something in that ecosystem, you actually don't have to pay an airplane ticket. You can just take people out for coffee tonight, and you can actually learn from the experts, like people who are building some really, really cool stuff at world scale. Similarly, in some AI parts, in parts of core research, we've recently had the news that AMD opened up an office. I guess I'm now mentioning certain names, but I'm talking more about the trend. In Serbia, you have, by my latest count, 8 different teams, 8 really, really major companies that are doing some part of their core design in Serbia. So you actually no longer have to leave Serbia if you graduate from ETF to go and work on the latest, say, GPU or the latest acceleration or the latest AI parts. Like if you want to work on AI is a huge, broad space, but if you pick to work there, you can again go to Novi Beograd, go to Niš, and talk to world experts in that. And you don't have to buy an expensive plane ticket and learn how to speak a completely different language and how to dress and how to talk and walk in a different environment. You can actually do that here. So gaming, everybody now knows Trilateral and Nordeus and whatnot, but like that's super vast space. You can't do any gaming. You have to really pick, like, what are those guys really good at, and I can learn from that. So I gave you 3 examples, and I hope that's enough. So we are lucky that we have enough world-class teams, world-class breakthroughs happening in this country or the neighboring countries. Start there. every day I see, as an investor, like I've looked at several hundred pitch decks this year from the region. When I see a B2C app and I see that really the team doesn't have any experience outside of Serbia or working with folks, broadly or selling an app before, like who are you going to learn from? Where are you going to go? Who are you going to tap into? We're going to hire the talent. Like it's a no across the board. You're basically not going to succeed to become a unicorn. You may succeed and sell something and be successful, but again, the topic of my presentation is how to create that supernova explosion of talent, capital, knowledge. So I'm going to talk about the second thing real quick, and it kind of dovetails from the first one. And so the first one is like, please first start with something that you can, where Serbia and existing players in the market are already working on global scale. Second thing is you need to surround yourself with people who are world-class talent. And don't be confused. Sometimes, there's certain, I won't mention names, but there's, a bunch of companies around here where people are working on some really, really cool stuff. But for whatever reason, they're not mentoring startups or founders outside. So that's a second controversial topic that I'll say today, which is I wish there were more people who are working on really, really cool shit here in the region who would actually take time to mentor budding entrepreneurs in that area. It's a challenge of mine. I think we do way too little of that. In San Francisco, with a person who does not have an English last name or speaks English with an accent, I was able to get first meetings with world-class experts much, much more quickly than doing that in Serbia, even at this stage when people hopefully know me a bit better. We do too little of that. But you can't change it. So again, you have to find it. Like you can't wait until the whole ecosystem and everybody grows up to be able to do that. You have to seek that. And if you don't find that, go for it. Go find it. Because the most important thing early on at a startup is picking, again, if you're in San Francisco, if you're in Tokyo, whatever, like picking the right market, sizing it. Here it's actually a much more constrained problem. You have to start somewhere, but you can actually be successful where you have enough local talent that is world-class, where you have enough access to the market that is world-class, and where you have enough mentors, including investors, who actually know that area, right? And even if you're, say, a really good B2C app that is taking off, and say you're doing photography, I hope nobody gets offended here because I get pitched this like once every day. Like there's no local investor that has succeeded, even remotely close to funding and building a unicorn in anything that has to do with B2C photography. So who are you going to surround yourself with? There is no founder that I know of, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but yet every day almost I get pitched something in that area. Right? So the second criteria here is not only do you have to start with the underlying premise that you can actually access top-class talent and be plugged in at the world-class innovation, but you actually have to find a subset of those people who actually you can tap into personally as mentors to pull them into potentially angel investors, to pull them in as advisors, maybe even future employees of your startup. And unfortunately in Serbia, that's actually even a smaller set of, and same true for Croatia. So when I say Serbia, I mean all of the surrounding countries. So that's the second problem. So now you're saying like, wait a second, like Tiho's now saying like, shit, like we're here really at a disadvantage. We're really here at a disadvantage because everybody else is starting from like ecosystems that are much broader. They can support more of these stories. Over there, people mentor and network and angel invest a lot more readily than they do here in Serbia. All of that is true. I still do think that there is a tremendous advantage to doing stuff out of this region. And the advantage is that there is lack of people like me, meaning there is a total lack of investors here who are sophisticated. And so when you find something that really, really works, you can actually be a first mover in the talent market. You can be the first mover in the partnership market. You can actually soak up the best that this country and the surrounding countries have to offer. You just have to be there. And you can't do that from San Francisco. You can't do that from Paris, right? Like you move from Paris to here to actually be able to do that, right? So that's why being on the ground is very important. But then again, the topic of my presentation is that, one of the next regional unicorns. I'm not talking here about like creating 50. I'm just talking about creating like how do you create that next one. If you're a founder and you're thinking about this, I hope that you take these things close to heart. And I'm going to talk about the third thing where you should really focus as a founder who wants to create the next regional unicorn. You should probably be spending most of your waking hours understanding what the heck AI is doing to your industry. If you're a coder, you should be using AI to code. If you're a designer, you should be doing that. If you're designing chips, you should be understanding how that works. If you're like anything that you're doing, anything you're building, unless you're spending the majority of your time understanding how the current AI revolution is disrupting your industry, and you're actually doing it yourself, you're not going to be the next unicorn. So I think this shift, like people don't understand how big this is, and nobody can because our brains are linear. I'd like to talk about two things here, just to kind of describe how fundamental these changes are, and this is going to be far bigger than internet or 5G or whatever else you think is big. And why do you think I can talk about this? Because I was a student of Jeff Hinton, Silas Escobar at like the guy at OpenAI who now just raised $1 billion seed round, was my classmate. And so I saw him mature from, just a regular student to somebody who raised first ever $1 billion seed round. And so that's how long it took. It took 10 years from him to like be somebody who stutters presenting and somebody who is talking about RNNs for the first time to him raising $1 billion round. That's how quickly that goes. It's actually 10 years, not that long of a time. AI is exponentially growing in terms of what it requires, in terms of capital, in terms of capacity, in terms of energy that it requires, and also it's exponentially growing at the impact that it has. So the first ChatGPT models took a few $1 million to train. The ones from last year took about $10 to $50 million. The most recent one took around $100 million, and it's rumored that GPT-5 is going to take over $1 billion, probably several $billion to train. To run it, to do inference is kind of like has progressed the same. In the same time frame, about every 18 months, it went from like it can actually write a sentence that sounds like English to it can write a paragraph that sounds like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old who has really good vocabulary to like it can actually write pretty decent articles, full length. Same with math. It went from like it can solve basic problems to like it can pass high school, just in like 3 iterations. And at the same time, how expensive it is to do it, how resource intensive it is, and the changes that it does, it's also growing exponentially. And so think about that as a founder. So you need to grow exponentially as well. The only way that you can do that is if you are actually fundamentally understanding how AI is going to impact your own job, whatever your expertise is, right? Whatever expertise you're starting with, and how it's going to impact your industry. Because in order to keep pace, about every 12 to 18 months, you need to double or 10x your own capability. So my then last controversial, hopefully, or somewhat controversial topic for tonight is for you as a founder. Like you've seen developers get dev tools, you've seen designers get design tools, you've seen people who write articles have Gen AI tools. How are you as a founder using AI to 10x yourself? And if you come in and you don't have like, Tiho, I'm working on this thing that I don't know it's going to be big, but let me just show you how I'm using AI to really do lead gen sourcing, 10x more so and faster so than the best sales team I've seen in existence. I will invest in you. If you come to me and you're like, well, we are, I found, 3 real world-class experts and we're doing this thing and we think that after 6 months of toiling in the garage, we know how AI is going to change our industry and we want to be first to do it, I will invest in you. On the flip side, if you come to me and you're like, well, we're doing a better version of this, or we're doing a Me Too app, whatever thing is happening, I will just be like, good luck, let's go for lunch, and then I'm back to doing some other stuff. So I hope that this was somewhat interesting, inspirational, and I hope that somebody challenges me on these 3 controversial statements I said.